Next, I'd like to introduce Jamie McCue, who's one of our awesome UX designers at Bitovi. He's going to show us how we can take advantage of basic user-centered principles to improve our apps.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Hey, my name's Jamie, and I'm a UX designer at Bitovi. Today, I'm going to discuss user experience considerations for developers. There are many ways in which developer decisions impact the user experience. And this is a short presentation. We'll focus on a few ways developers can have that impact on the UX of an app through their everyday work. There's a plethora of ways to impact usability and user experience, but I'll only focus on a few for the sake of this presentation. UX is about creating something that's right for our users by understanding what they want, what they think, and how they feel. If an app suffers from a complicated interface or laggy performance, its UX will likely be poor and users will be unhappy. Developers who are looking to build products with longevity need to ensure that their products are usable, otherwise risk failing users, the business, and stakeholders. So for areas of impact, for the sake of this, we're going to talk about information architecture, visibility of system status, discovery, and accessibility. Consider some of the decisions that a developer needs to make. The answer to these questions can impact the UX for better or worse. How is validation going to work on this form? What wording will appear in this error message? How do we know the user will find this feature? How do we make this form more accessible? What is the best way to present this information? Developers are a crucial part in creating a successful user experience. But much of what the developer does, nobody notices until something goes wrong. You might think if you don't write CSS or HTML that you don't impact the user experience. However, there are many ways in which developers can directly have an impact. So a shift in perspective could be all that's needed to ensure that you have the user's best interest in mind. As Tim Cook from Apple once said, a great product isn't just a collection of features, it's how it all works together. So while building, keep the 5 W's in mind. Who are we building this app for? What problems are we solving? What features will the user expect? What context will the app be used? And where and how will the user access the app? We need to think about building better products and not just adding more features. Instead of strictly aiming for crossing features off the list, aim for implementing better ways to make your users successful. A few important topics I don't cover in this presentation are performance and speed, which are obviously very important considerations. For a developer concerned with UX, the focus is on whether the interactions, flow, and overall experience of the application works well for the end user. Is the app intuitive? Is it easy to use? Does it meet the user's needs? We have seen how everyday decisions that developers make can impact the user experience, for better or worse. As developers diving into building a project, decisions will have to be made that affect and refine the design. By validating our day-to-day decisions, code or design related, by the measure of creating a better user experience, we will become more comfortable in making these decisions. Here are a few practical tips that can have an impact on the UX of your app. Information architecture is all about organizing the content in a way that it can be understood in the easiest manner. Users should not have to wonder whether different words, situations, or actions mean the same thing. It's best to follow or create consistent conventions. Set information in a logical order by following a clear, simple, easy to scan visual hierarchy. People tend to unify visual elements into grouping according to their similarity, continuity, and closure. This is referred to as the Gestalt principles. Visual hierarchy is directly related to content readability and ease of use. Don't make users think. Be consistent with navigation and user interface components throughout your app. Don't make users think. It's important to use simple language and avoid technical jargon. Reduce complexity and cognitive load by minimizing choice. Cognitive load is the amount of information that a person can process at any given moment. The total cognitive load or amount of mental processing power needed to use your app affects how easily users find content and complete their tasks. The system should always keep users informed about what's going on through appropriate feedback within reasonable time. More information translates to better decision-making. A lack of information often equates to lack of control. Whether users interact with a system, they need to know whether the interaction was successful. Here are a couple examples. So, for be human and provide plain language messages for errors, alerts, and notices. It's important for your application to speak the language of your user base. Present useful error messages. If something goes wrong, explain what went wrong and explain how the user can fix it. Don't blame the user in your error messages. Be nice when communicating. Instead of focusing on the user's mistakes, focus on what they need to do to fix the problem. Users should be notified about the actions they perform along with any implications associated with the action. Don't delay users. Ensure quick interface responses. Providing immediate feedback will help the user and provide delight because the system reacted immediately. Offer informative blank slates. The first run experience is when lasting impressions are made, which makes the blank slate an important piece of the UX. It's an opportunity to educate our users about how the app works and how it will help them be awesome. Discoverability refers to the ease of use which users can discover features within an application. Learnability refers to how easy it is for the user to learn to use the application and its features. Discoverability in the context of product and interface design is the degree of use for which the user can find all the elements and features of a new system when they first encounter it. The ability is an important consideration. That ability is an important consideration in user interface and user experience design for hardware devices, software apps, and websites. Discoverability is a component of learnability, a measure of how easily someone can find, access, and make use of the components and features of a new system. Different features can be discoverable at different times. Not every feature needs to be available at all times. Decide which features need to be easily discoverable and which ones can be tucked away. Promote discoverability through patterns and consistent design. Interactions should be easy to learn and easy to remember. Ideally, people should be able to use an interface once, learn it, and remember it forever. Affordance, for example, is a visual characteristic of an element that provides the user with clues as to how to interact with that element. Think a door handle on a door. Accessibility, usability for all. An app or website is only useful if it's accessible to any user, anywhere, anytime. We often mistake the concept of accessibility as involving people with disabilities. However, we're all disabled in many contexts and circumstances. Choose colors carefully. If in doubt, test the color schemes with some colorblind people or try using an online simulator. Color blindness is an incredibly common disability, and the wrong palette can make it difficult for a colorblind person to read text or navigate. Ensure that you provide high levels of contrast between text and background. Screen readers can struggle with forms. Label fields and instructions give descriptions to screen readers via tags. Make tab order visually ordered and assign an era required or not required role to each field. Avoid the asterisk convention. Support keyboard navigation. People with motor disabilities, blind people that rely on screen readers, and people that don't have precise muscle control, and even power users are dependent on the keyboard to navigate content. Create usable focus states. Focus indicators help people know which element has the keyboard focus and helps them to understand where they are navigating. So in conclusion, my purpose for this presentation is simple. Designers are not the only people who influence the user experience of a product. If you manage or work with developers, I encourage you to include them in conversations about user experience and hopefully give the time to make some of the considerations outlined above. Thank you. Find out more about UX design at bitovi.com. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jamie. Does anyone have any questions for Jamie? Yeah, an applause.
Yeah, Jamie, do you think that was prioritized, what you just gave? Or there was a lot there, so like, what do you think is the most important thing?
Well, it wasn't prioritized per se, but I think that there's a lot of important considerations in there. I guess it depends on what you're coming up against. I think that any consideration that you can have that will benefit the end user using your app is an important consideration.
Sure, but give me your number one.
My number one, I would
just like blind people, forget about them. Just, but you know, good UX, or like, you know, I forgot what one of your earlier ones was.
Well, I'd say information hierarchy is pretty important. I mean, anybody who goes to an app or website and it's visual chaos and clutter, it's really overwhelming and confusing, and you don't really feel comfortable being there or using the app. So I think that information hierarchy is probably one of the priorities. Just keeping your interfaces clean, understandable, and usable can really go a long way.